I will just give an overview of different type of facts. Where this type of facts we are going to categorize is based on two different concepts. One is based on the type of measures we store inside a fact tables. So the first category of type of facts is based on the type of measures we are going to store in the fact table. That means whether a measure inside my fact table is an additive measure. Can we add the add the measures together, or whether it is semi-additive measure, or is it a non-additive measure. So based on the type of measures we have in the fact table, we are going to see how the different types of fact table can how the fact tables can be categorized into different types. So let's see this example. Number of products sold in day 1 and number of products sold in day 2. So using the number of products sold, we can actually add these two to get the total number of products sold in these 2 days. So this exactly this is what I mean this is what I meant when I said additive facts. So in this case, you can actually add them together. The measures, number of products is a measure. So these two measures you can actually add together to get a value 750 in this case. So that is called an additive fact. This is a type of fact which is called an additive fact. So use the second example which you see here is balance of an account. So a balance, right? So you can what exactly balance means in this example is the balance of your bank account. So a balance of your bank account, you cannot add it like today you have 1,000 rupees, tomorrow $1,000 or 1,000 rupees, tomorrow you have $2,000, then you cannot really say that you have $3,000, right? You have only $2,000. So basically you cannot really add the balance together from different days to get the total balance which you have now. So balance you have in your account is what you see in your account. So you see this example. In this example, a company has 2 accounts in a bank. On the day 1, the company's account 1 has 5,000 rupees. On the day 2, the company on the same day, the company's account 2 has 2,500 rupees. So now in the same day, the company which has 2 accounts, you can actually add them together to get the total balance. So in this case, 2 different accounts can the amount in 2 different accounts for the same company can be added together, or for the different company also. You can say that how much balance does all the companies together have in that particular day. You can actually add the balances together to see how much money is there in that bank account for all the companies. So you can add on the same day, you can actually add the balances together to get the total balance. But if you see the second example, in that case you are actually having for the same company in 2 different days, the balances are 5,000 and 3,000. So that means the person has actually withdrawn money from his account, and then he's left with 3,000. He withdrew like $2,000 and he's left with 3,000. So his balance is 3,000. It's not addition of these two from yesterday and today's. So it's not 8,000. It's actually 3,000. So this you cannot add together. So this type of fact, which is additive but not always, is called as semi-additive facts. So yeah, so another type of fact, another example we are going to see now is profit margin. So you see in this case, the profit margins, you can never add them together. For either for day 1 or day 2, you cannot add them. So for a profit margin of a particular company, for a particular product, or for the whole sales was on day 1 is 30% and the profit margin for day 2 was 70%, that doesn't mean that your company has a profit margin of 100% for these 2 days. You cannot add profit margins. So these type of facts are called non-additive facts. So if you see all these, so this is in this case you cannot add the measures together to get the total value. So you cannot summarize, mathematically add these measures. So these type of facts is called non-additive facts. There is the last type of fact based on the type of measure stored in a fact table is those dimension which only has dimension IDs and there is no measures in the table. These are very interesting facts. You can ask why do we have the fact then if it doesn't have any measures. Basically these type of facts, let's take an example to explain this. Say there is a hospital, right, and your fact table takes note of all the events happening in that hospital. Like events, by events what I mean is a doctor meeting a patient, a patient going to an X-ray counter to get his X-ray done, or a patient going to the pharmacy. So all these kind of meetings are known as events. So your fact table, say it notes down all the events happening in that particular hospital on that day. So your fact table will have keys from all these different your fact table, say it looks like this. Say what all columns will your fact table have? First is department. So for an event when so department is the first column. Second column is the person ID, whichever person went, and then third is the type of person ID. So say for first case, when a patient went and met the doctor in the hospital, your fact table will store the first column where it will store the key of that department where he met the person. Then second, he will have the key of the ID of the person, and then third you will have the doctor's ID. So something like that. So it will capture the event actually event which happened, which is doctor meeting the patient in the hospital. So that is the fact. Second fact, say a patient goes and does his X-ray in the X-ray department. So the second will be the patient went to the X-ray department, get his X-ray done. So that is another fact. So this is actually not a measurable thing. This is not mathematically additive, but it actually gives you information about something which is happening. So if you want to generate a report saying how many patients visited my X-ray department today, so you can use that fact table to generate that kind of report. So those type of fact tables which doesn't contain any measurable columns or measurable attributes is called as factless fact. So they don't have any facts or measures, but they are still fact tables, which gives you information about the it gives you certain kind of information which you can use to generate reports. So let's go and see what all example they have given here in the PPT for the different type of facts. So first one we discussed was additive fact. So the example shown here is the airline industry. The table you see here is a airline industry table where they note down date, branch, and the number of tickets sold by date in that branch, the number of tickets sold on that date in that branch. So that is what your fact table stores. From this table you can actually gather different kind of information. Like say one kind of report we can generate from this table is we can add how many tickets were sold in New York branch, or how many tickets were sold in Chicago branch. So what you will do, you will add 1,000 for New York branch. You will add 1,000 and 2,000. So in New York branch, in the month of January, there were 3,000 tickets sold. Or what you can do is you can get the sum of tickets sold on 1st of January. So you will add 1,000 and 1,500 to get 2,500, which is the number of tickets sold on 1st of January. So that is the different kind of information. Those are the different kinds of information you can get from this particular fact table. So these are additive facts. Example of an additive fact. So airline, so this the next slide explains how we add measures along different dimensions, which I just told you, along the date or along the branch. So such dimension which can be added across different dimensions is called additive facts. The next one is semi-additive fact, which we already discussed about the bank current balance. Yep. So we discussed this one, semi-additive fact. Yeah. So you can add. So in this case, bank industry, you can add it along the date, but you cannot add it for two different dates for the same account. You cannot. So it's a semi-additive fact. So certain facts can be added across few dimension attributes. Adding them across few other dimension attribute does not make business sense. Such facts are called semi-additive facts. Non-additive facts are those which cannot be added, which we discussed. In this case, the profit margin. Supermarket chain has a table which contains date, store name, and profit margin. So in this case, you cannot really add the profit margin by date or by store. You cannot really add these two profit margin, even if it is a measure. You cannot really add these profit margin across stores or across date. So those kind of fact tables are called non-additive facts. Yep. So you cannot. So in this example, they are just trying to add it by store. First by store, they take XYZ store on January and 1st of January and 2nd of January on the left side, and they try to add 40% profit and 60% profit on 1st of Jan and 2nd of Jan, but you can't add it. It cannot be 100%. Same thing, they try to add it across same date but different stores, and it gives you 70% profit margin, which is also not correct, which is not mathematically correct. So you cannot add them. And finally, we discussed about the factless fact tables, which is so sometimes so what the slide says is sometimes a business event has no measure. You might just need to track such events to know that. So we discussed the hospital event. So it's the similar scenario. Such fact tables do not have any measures that can be aggregated, are called factless fact tables. These tables have keys populated from different dimensions, and that needs to be tracked. That's it. So they just have keys from all the dimensions, product key, or the department ID key in our case, and the person ID key, and then what type of event was it, like say X-ray or whatever. So these keys are stored. There is no measure. So the example they are giving here is every time we load a dimension table, we need an event created. Thus we will have factless fact table containing dimension IDs that were loaded for a particular day. Every time we load a dimension table. Yeah. So this is just, they're just saying that if there is a new dimension record going into a dimension table, that means some event happened. So there will be a new record created in your fact table to accommodate that event. So that is your it's the same thing, like you, anytime there is a new event happening, your fact table will be populated with new keys. Just the dimension keys, no measures. Hence each time a dimension table is loaded, the dimension IDs loaded is also entered in the fact table. Hence for a given day we can determine how many records were loaded in the dimension table. So the example they are giving here is, so if your fact table only has keys, what exactly do you get from that fact table? You can actually count the number of events, like I told before, right? You can actually count the number of events that happened in that particular day, or you can also calculate how many patients went to the X-ray department by just counting the number of records in the fact table with has the ID for the department as X-ray department, something like that. So it just gives you a count. There is no measure which you can add together. So that's factless fact table. So okay, so we discussed about type of fact, which I just said. Based on the type of measure we store in that table, right? So based on the type of measure, so the second categorization of fact table is based on the timeline, or you can say time interval, or you can say, yeah, it's actually based on the time the fact table is loaded, or the fact table is captured, the time period in which the fact table is captured. So based on the time interval or the time period, the fact table can be categorized into different type of facts, which we are going to see now. The first type in this diagram you can see is product 1 sold, product 2 sold, and product 3 sold. All the products go into this final dimension table with transaction table which stores which shows all the products sold, which stores all the products sold in the whole day or along the whole time. So it's like every transaction which is happening, that is product 1 being sold as a transaction, product 2 being sold as a transaction, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So this particular fact table will contain all the transaction, all the data about every transaction which is happening. So that is called the transactional fact table. So when I started the type of fact, I told you that this is a categorization of fact based on the time period or time zone or the events happening. So it's actually not only the time period but even the events happening. So in this case it's about different type of transaction which is happening, the different transactions which are happening in a particular company is all stored in a fact table, and that particular fact table is called transaction fact table. So all the transaction is stored in this table. So the second type of fact you can see in this example, excuse me, is it's actually storing summarized data for different time span. It's like for June, it's storing a summarized, it is having data for June, and the summary is stored in the table. Like June 2014, there were 50 employees in a particular company. In July 2014, there were 75 employees in that particular company, right? So in this case, you can see you cannot really add the total number of employees. So similar in the semi-additive fact, we saw that you cannot really add all the measures, right? This measure you're seeing here is similar to the balance. So you cannot add 50 employees from previous month and 50 employees from this month to show that your company has 125 employees this month in total. So that's not correct. So, but these kind of fact tables, this kind of table which stores data from different time span as a snapshot, it's called snapshot fact table. This kind of fact table, as I said, is not fully additive. But transaction fact table, since it stores all the transaction, you can actually count or add the number of. So say if your fact table contains product, so 1 which was sold has an amount attached to it, product 2 has an amount attached to it, you can actually add them to get. So it is actually additive, but this snapshot fact table is not additive. It's not fully additive. And the third type of transaction table is called, in this case you see step 1, you have only one record. The step 1, 2 and 3 which you see here is only one record in each step. So this one record is being populated in a stepwise manner. So when your order comes in, right, it gets populated. The first column gets populated with the order date. In the step 2, when your order is shipped, your shipment date is populated in that second column. In the end, in the step 3, your delivery date is also populated after your product is delivered. So in this case, the data is being populated in different time span as and when your process finishes. So when your order date was populated, that means the order was placed. When your shipment was done, your shipment date was populated. When your delivery was done, your delivery date was populated. So in the end, a record which has been delivered will have all the 3 dates populated. A record which has only been shipped and not delivered yet will have 2 dates populated. And the record which has only been ordered and not been shipped yet will have only 1 date populated. So this kind of fact table is called accumulated fact tables. So where the data is getting accumulated as and when the process, as and when the different business processes are completed. So similarly, so let's see the first one, transaction fact table, as we discussed, which stores transaction for each record. So in this example which you see here, they are showing railway industry. The example we discussed previously was products being sold. This one is another example in which they're showing railway industry, where you are having a record entered into this fact table after every ticket sold. So the first ticket was sold on 1st of January for first class and the quantity was 1. Second ticket on the same date, sleeping class ticket was sold, quantity 1. Likewise in 2nd of Jan and likewise 2 tickets were for first class was sold on 2nd of Jan. So you see that every transaction the railway industry went through, every ticket it sold on that particular day has a record in this fact table, has a single record. So there is no summarized record, there is no quantity 2. So every transaction has 1 record. So in this fact table, you can actually use this fact table to find out how many sleeping class tickets were sold on month of January, or how many tickets were sold on 1st of January, how many tickets were sold on 2nd of January, how many first tickets sold, like 01, ticket number 01 sold were first class, something like that. Just so 3 different dimensions. So you can calculate facts based on date, ticket number and class. So this is an example of transaction fact table. So what we discussed just now. So first class ticket sold, quantity added together 3. So this is fully additive fact. So transaction fact table are generally additive. Okay, so the one we discussed, the second table we discussed was the snapshot fact table. A new example in this slide is region 1 has 1,000 people on end of month 1. The same region has at the end of month 2 has 1,500 people, but you cannot really, like we discussed before, snapshot fact table are facts which are stored from certain span of time and it is summarized, but they are not fully additive. So you cannot really add region 1's end of month number of people at end of month 1 and 2 together to get the total number of people in region 1. That is totally wrong. So the people in region 1 now is 1,500 and not 2,500, which comes by adding these two. So this is not an additive, not a fully additive fact. So hence, unlike transaction table, the measures are additive, and here the measures are not fully additive. But you can still add them across, like we discussed in the example for balance, right? You can still say if you have a fact table which contains region 1, region 2, region 3 at end of month 1, then you can see what is the total number of people in end of month 1. So that in that dimension you can actually, in the region dimension you can add them. Across region dimension you can add, but not across month. So that is semi-additive. Accumulated is the example we discussed, order placed, then the date. As soon as the order is placed, there will be a record entered into the fact table which will show 1st of Jan, product number, then the quantity of product sold. But the shipment date and delivery date will be empty. As soon as the product is shipped, the shipment date will be populated, which is 2nd of Jan 2000. And as soon as the product is delivered, the delivery date will be populated. So this particular fact table which accumulates the data as the business process goes on is called accumulated fact table. It's about the fact tables.